Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am back. Feels like I was just here. I am Bill, the company's expert. In case you don't know, thank you very much for the people that are here. This episode of Honest HR Nitrous is called "Why This Is an Extrovert's World." So, if you are an introvert, like I am, I hope you are joining me today because we're going to learn what these people do, namely extroverts, what advantages they have. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm here to tell you that the advantages they have are really not that hard to replicate for a lot of introverts. You can easily find either you could learn to do this your stuff yourself, or you can do a substitute for it that is almost just as effective. I see a lot of introverts being held back by their personality. You know, the fact that they don't suffer fools gladly, the fact that they enjoy doing certain activities by themselves, like reading a book or watching TV, you know? And because of this, many people's careers have suffered, and it's counting against them. So we're here to combat that. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, this is an interactive live chat. So if you see my face, you should see some kind of chat box or prompt of some kind in the vicinity of my face. And I would encourage you to get into the chat. Let me know your reactions to things, to what I'm saying and to other things. Let me know what you're struggling with, what you're dealing with, what you're wondering about, and I will do my best to help you out. Special thanks, as always, to my YouTube channel members, to my Patreons, and to my super thanks donors. You guys are awesome. And to everybody who's here, my participants and subscribers, you guys are amazing. And I'm going to do my best to help you out. So we had 13 people and it went down to 7. So either that means that what I'm saying is completely uninteresting, or people are searching for the chat box but are having some technical difficulty, shall we say. Yes. You know, in the last stream, I mentioned the fact that no one has asked me for my measurements yet. That's something I never thought I would ever say. I also don't know how I would respond if I had to give my measurements. They're probably like, 48, 137, 48 or something like that. Anyway, I made myself laugh. That's always a good start. Okay, so as I said, the title of this is called "Why This Is an Extrovert's World." So if you are an introvert, hopefully you will find this interesting. I'm here to share some of the things that I had to learn in my quest to get over some of the things that were holding me back as an introvert. Introverts are awesome. Introverts have a ton of amazing qualities. And like I've said before, if you are an introvert, you're not feeling super happy about that at the moment because you're having to play an extroverted person's game, like job search, right? Like networking, that kind of stuff. Look at the fact that if you go back in history and you look at inventions and you look at who are the people that invented pretty much almost every single key human invention that we know of, as you go further back, they're all introverts. People who can focus on a technical thing, on an idiosyncratic thing, and get really, really, really into it. And they'd much rather do that than hang around a bunch of people they don't know and make a bunch of small talk, right? It's a lot of talent out there. You look at, personally, one of my favorite things is learning about watching documentaries on things like World War II or the space race, the Cold War. People, let's take the space race, like putting the rockets up, getting people in space, going to the moon, all that kind of stuff, and everything they've done since then, which has not been that much. Absolutely incredible stories made by a lot of odd people who were all introverts to a man, or to a person, I should say. There's been a lot of women in there too, but they are also introverts, that have really done amazing things. And the last thing I want to do is give anyone the impression that extroverts are superior to introverts in any objective way. They're not. Every personality type is needed. Every personality type contributes, right, to essentially the same degree. But the problem is that careers and job search, they are not correlated with necessarily how great your technical skills are. Hopefully, or presumably, most people know that. You figure that out already, especially if you're here, right? That's the thing. If you are trying to find a job, or you are trying to climb the ladder, wherever you are in your career, this is a process that relies on connections to other people. And the more connections you have, the more opportunities come your way. It's as simple as that. See, I try to remember to shift my camera angle every few minutes. But when I'm really on a roll, I usually forget. So it just locked onto one shot for like half an hour. If you've been at this for any amount of time, you may already be aware that the person who usually gets the job is not necessarily the most talented, not necessarily the most qualified. Usually it's the person who is the most connected, right? That's usually how these things work. Now, sometimes that's a bad thing because you're not hiring the person or you're not engaging the person who is the most qualified that could actually do it. But in other circles, it's not regarded as a problem because someone who is connected, there's advantages in that directly, right? You may not have a solution for things, but you can connect to someone who does, right? That's the advantage of having a big network, and that's the advantage that some executives have. That's what substitutes for their own sometimes lack of abilities, is that they have a connection to someone who has that particular ability. So no matter what it is that you're trying to do, whatever problem you're trying to solve, they still are very capable, just using that as a method to succeed rather than being able to do it all themselves. And as you get higher and higher, it is increasingly impractical to be able to expect to be able to just solve everything yourself. That's just the reality. Usually people have skills in one area that goes pretty deep, a depth skill set, and then you have like a broad skill set, right? But usually people are strong and they go deep in one area and one area only. Or maybe if you're lucky, two, Okay, so let's get into this. Okay, that's enough of a preamble. I see there's 15 people here. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. As I said, get in the chat, react to anything. Let me know what you're wondering about. Let me know what you would like me to talk about. And you can help steer this because I have no real big agenda on what I'm going to talk about. Unconventional advice that works says, connections help. Never underestimate the power of networking. Yes. Unconventional advice that works. You are absolutely correct. And I have found that my experiences on YouTube and also my experiences going back to university to teach have both taught me the same thing. And that is that networking is surprisingly a tough sell for most people. That's the impression I'm left with. And I'm not sure if it's because the people I'm talking to, that audience are all introverts, or I don't know, there's something else. Maybe they regard it as, they think it's something that it's not. They think it's like, oh, I'm cheating in a way. I'm not good enough to, say, get a job by going head to head with all the other candidates. So instead, I'm going to go behind everyone's back. I think that's how some people who don't really understand networking, that's what they think it is. And it's not. I think that's the big issue. That's a lot of people are so unwilling to even learn about this or be open to it. Yet, it's the single biggest method that, like vector or whatever you want to call it, how people get jobs. If you were to ask, say 100 people who are currently working, and this is across every industry, every country, every region, every type of job, and you ask them, how did you get your job? They're not going to say, oh, I saw a job posting online, I applied for it, talked to a recruiter, and I didn't know anyone or didn't have any personal connections with that company, and they just hired me. That's not going to be the most common response. The most common response is, I got this through some form of networking. And what that might sound like is somebody saying, well, I had a previous a coworker of mine who got a job here, and so I applied, and they kind of coached me through it, and because I knew them, it helped get me the job. Right? Not in a underhanded, sort of slimy way, like where I didn't deserve it, but they gave me the opportunity. Or they convinced the hiring manager, you should consider this person with all the other people you're considering. Right? That will be the most common answer you get. It's, I got this job through some form of networking. And most people that do that, they don't go through recruiters. In fact, management jobs, upper management jobs and executive jobs, or upper middle management jobs, executive jobs, it's exclusively all networking, how people get hired. It's extremely rare that you would hire a CEO or a vice president or anything like that by, you put out a job posting and then vice presidents apply, and then you send them to a job interview and you ask them, tell me about yourself, and then you pick one, and then that's your vice president. That's almost unheard of. That's not how that stuff works. Usually when you hire someone like a vice president or someone in middle management, you know of them. You've heard of them. You're familiar with their track record. You maybe dealt with them before. Maybe they worked for a competitor and your counterpart at another company, something like that, right? Funky G says, do you think a doctoral degree can be a status and therefore a career boost, or is the effect just minor? Excellent question, Funky G. Okay, well, you're asking, what do I think? Okay, here's what I think about that. I don't have a PhD or a doctoral degree. My father does. He's long since retired, but he has a PhD. Now, whether it's going to help you or not, it depends on what your goals are. Now, if your goal is to become a professor at a university, then obviously having a PhD will help you, right? Okay, it's that simple. But if you're talking like just in general, like say you're trying to find a job or something, okay? I don't have the stats on this memorized, but what's been the case for many, many years is that generally speaking, companies will hire candidates with master's degrees a lot more often than they will hire someone with a doctorate degree. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if that's because there are, many times more candidates that have master's degree than doctoral degrees, but that's the general rule. If you count the number of people with doctoral degrees in industry, you count the number of master's degrees, it's like a 10-to-1 ratio at least. It's something like that. Like go and do your own research and get your own statistics on this, because I'm a bit fuzzy on the statistics, but master's degrees are far more likely. Now, in addition to that, several people over the years, I don't know if these were recruiters or these were executives, but they came out and they said, we specifically hire people with master's degrees and specifically don't hire people with doctoral degrees. And it's based on the culture and their perspective of how the world works and what they place value on. If I had to guess, I would say it's because they make certain assumptions about you. If you have a doctoral degree, you're sort of an academic. You're not really a private sector type person with that private sector type mentality. I don't see a lot of like mover shaker type, results matter type people that have doctoral degrees, but that's just my own opinion based on my limited experience. So whatever your goal is, that trumps anything. Now, if you want to know what's the right thing to do, like I've said several times, probably the simplest thing you can do right now is go on LinkedIn, if you have a LinkedIn account, and do a people search for in your area, like if you're wondering, say, if there's a job that you want and you're wanting to know, should I get a doctoral degree to qualify that for me or not? Will it help or not? Do a people search where you look up that degree. So like, PhD and whatever, and do it as a people search that's confined to one region, like your region or the region you care about. And then your results will be all these different individuals, all these different people, right? And presumably they all have that qualification in their profile. So presumably most of them will have the qualification, they'll have a PhD, or they'll be studying to get a PhD right now. That's why it would show up on their profile. So look at their look at their profiles. Now, if they've been in that role and you're getting the people search for people results for a role, look at their profile and see like, okay, if everyone in that role has a PhD, that suggests that the PhD is pretty important to get hired in that role. If nobody of all the people you found in that role, if none of them have a PhD, that tends to suggest that a PhD is not required or really that helpful in getting employed in that role, right? So you can get data on this right now, okay? Now, I believe for LinkedIn, if you don't have a paid account, you can do this search right now by clicking, the month free trial for the paid account. We'll give you a month for free. All you have to do is cancel it before the end of 30 days, whatever it is, to say nope. And then you don't have to pay anything, but you can still do these powerful people searches, right? So hopefully that was a nice long-winded response to that, but hopefully that's helpful. Pearl says, hello, Bill. I've realized success on the job leans more on communication skills, public speaking, and the like, way more than technical competency and savviness. Yes, you are absolutely correct. Sometimes this is justified, sometimes it isn't, but that is generally the way it does work. And as you go higher and higher, the emphasis is more and more on people skills. And just so you know, like being connected to other people and having a big network, that is also falls under the category of people skills, right? Like that's one element of it, right? Being likable, being personable, that's one element. Understanding etiquette, protocol, how you communicate very delicate things in very complex situations, that's part of it, right? Having personal charisma and all that, someone that people want to deal with, that's part of it. And being connected to a lot of people, knowing someone that's an expert on whatever thing, and that you can immediately pick up the phone and ask them a question, that's another part of it. They're all under that umbrella of people skills. And as you go higher and higher, more of that is required and more of the different areas are required. And at the lower level, like if you're just getting a job as a worker or a manager, the likability stuff is definitely there. And, understanding the basics of being professional, not making off-color jokes, not making people feel awkward, not coming across as frustrated or rude or, offended or, like any of that stuff, right? So that's kind of what I would presume is more like the basic skills in that area. And then you tack more things as you climb the ladder. You tack more on. Okay, Funky G. Now, this was about the PhD thing. Funky G says, if you work in the industry, for example, car manufacturing, and you already work at the company, for example, I study next to working full-time doing my master's currently. Good tip with LinkedIn, thank you. I do it sometimes. Also, I check that time to time, and many higher managers in my company do have a plan. Now, listen. Okay, here's something you need to be aware of. I suspect you might already be aware of it, but we're going to cover it anyway because it's damn important. Every single person has their own theory of what makes you valuable as an employee or, as a member of an organization. So if you work at a company where they've gotten it into their head, it's part of their culture that, we don't respect doctoral degrees, or maybe you work at a place like a university, for example, where they do respect doctoral degrees a great deal, That is ephemeral. It varies. It's highly variable. You go to one organization, they think one thing. You go to another organization, they have precisely the opposite value system, right? Like, for example, another version of this is like, what makes you more valuable, experience or education? Right? Now, you go to one organization, they don't give a rat's ass about education. You go to one organization, they don't care about education at all. They have, I worked in an industry like this. You have people that are vice presidents that have a high school diploma, and they've worked as a mechanic, like a grease monkey, for several years. And then next thing you know, they're into management. Now they're running an organization with 5,000 people in it. You go to another organization and they don't care at all about experience. They don't care if you've been in a job for 35 years. They will still promote someone who has a degree over you, right? Now, sometimes these are justified and sometimes they're not. They're just based on some unproven theory of, this makes you more suitable or valuable or whatever. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just, usually it's affected by the people in charge or the person in charge at the helm, like the owner of the company or the CEO or whatever, what they happen to believe based on their personal experiences. That's what they have sometimes succeeded in infusing into an organization, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that, let's say this company you're in now that you're asking about in manufacturing, they have a certain value system where they say getting a doctoral degree is a waste of time. That might be specific only to this organization. So if you get a doctoral degree because, let's say, you're passionate about it or something, you find that you can easily get a job across the street at a different company in a similar role because they value a doctoral degree. You say, like, I have a doctoral degree, I'm in a great position to be the head of R&D or head of engineering or whatever. It's like, I got a PhD in this stuff. I've been pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. And that's what makes me the type of person that can give you an edge in your product to outmaneuver your competitors. Not only can I do it, but I understand that kind of thing. I can wrangle the people like me who will give you that edge. So it's highly variable. So don't guess. Go and get the specific data on specific organizations. You can refine your LinkedIn search to looking at one company or one organization. If it's a big company, there might be a few people in there that have doctorate degrees. Look at where they are. And if you care about specific positions, research those positions, find all the people in those positions, and see what education they have, and then see what experience they have, and try and find commonalities, because that'll tell you what that organization values, right? What you're not seeing is, you're not seeing the soft skills. You're not seeing their personality. You're not seeing their political savvy. You're not seeing how connected they are and other factors, but you are seeing their experience and their education, and that can be somewhat revealing as to what they value. Okay, where did I leave off here? Pearl says, I realize interacting with people makes me very uncomfortable. I suffer a lot of anxiety over this. Please, how do I manage myself so that I don't always have this emotional roller coaster? Great question, Pearl. Absolutely awesome question there. Okay, here's the deal. Like a lot of things, the solution is to learn. It's like a twofold kind of solution. The first is to understand the theory. So if you're talking about like meeting people or interacting with people, the first thing that you would do is almost like you study for, say, a job interview where you learn the answers to standard questions, right? You would kind of do almost a version of that where you say, like, okay, when someone says this, when they say, nice to meet you, thank you for coming in, what do I say? What's an appropriate response? What should I say? Now, I could say, thanks. Or I could have a more sophisticated response. It says like, it's like, thank you very much for this opportunity. I really appreciate you guys going out of your way to do this for me. Not everyone does that, and you guys did it. It's like, I don't know, this something a little bit more sophisticated. You have to learn a bit about etiquette. You have to learn about the protocol of, different situations, right? But you can learn all that like with the internet. I mean, the internet is pretty awesome for stuff like this. Okay, so you sort of, first of all, learn what's the right response and what's the right thing to do in what situation. And it's very much solo study kind of thing, right? The second part of this is then you have to go out and practice it. You have to go out and apply it, okay? Because you've got to like practice it over and over. In a real situation where your nerves are going and you feel uncomfortable and you feel nervous and all this, you have to be put in those situations where you go through like this, the things that you learned. I don't know the terminology. I'm not an educator really. But like, when you learn something, you're like sort of, it's not muscle memory yet. It's like you're remembering, okay, in this situation, I have to say this. So it's more of a very conscious process, right? What you want to do is you want to practice it enough in real life that it stops being a conscious process where you have to think, okay, when they say this, I have to say this. Instead, it's muscle memory. They say that, you automatically say this. And if that doesn't work, for some reason, you have another thing that you automatically say, right? So it's like that twofold process. Learn the theory and then go out and put it into practice until it becomes automatic. Okay? Now, this might sound like a tall order for you, right? It doesn't sound like this is something you can do in one day, right? It isn't. But put it this way, you've got your whole rest of your life to do this. So the road is long, and that time is going to pass whether you're working on this or not. So what my opinion is certainly, in your free time, when you have a little bit of extra energy left over, you're wanting to learn this or that, work on it. Work on it casually as you go through your life. You go to the grocery store, you interact with the, the person that bags the groceries. You go to the bank, you interact with the bank manager. That would be a great way to practice some more of the high-level professional communication skills, right? Weave it into your life. And then if you feel particularly ambitious, you can actually go out and actively start doing networking activities. And one way of doing that is to say, look, my profession is, engineering. Okay, whatever it is, whatever your profession is. And you say to yourself, I really don't know much about the type of people who start engineering companies, like entrepreneur engineers. I've never worked in a small company. I don't know anyone who started their own company who's yet also an engineer. I wonder how that stuff works and what those people are like and what their communication skills are like and what their traits are like. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to meet these people. The most obvious thing to do would be to go to an event in your hometown or whatever, where you have you have a congregation of entrepreneur engineers. Maybe it's an industry trade show or a tech show or a tech symposium or, some event put on by a company to, or an industry association or something like that, where you're going to be rubbing shoulders with these people and you just go down there. The only thing you might have to do is print up like a business card, for a couple of business cards for like $20 or something. Then you can go down there and then you have a perfect venue to engage all these people in conversation that are entrepreneur type engineers. And then you will learn how they talk, what they talk about, what they're interested in. You'll learn a lot of new things. You might pick up some hard skills about how you would do that kind of thing yourself, right? And you are improving your social skills, you're improving your interpersonal skills, you are doing networking, so you're improving your networking abilities, and you're growing your network. You know what I mean? And that's another like amazing opportunity to work on all these abilities and build up a network. And you know what I'm saying? Like that's if you really want to take it to the next level. That's where you really want to specifically work on it. But these are all things you can do that will improve this. Now, in 2 weeks, will you learn it all? No. But in 2 years' time, you will have skills that you don't have now. You will be much more comfortable being in these types of social situations, whereas you weren't before. It's like a subconscious thing. You have no control over it. You're just more comfortable because you've been to 50 of these. You know how it goes. You've interacted with enough people to realize that these people aren't superhuman and they're not really intimidating. They're just, some of them are faking it like you are, right? So these are things you can do that will help you with that. And the road is long. And if you start working on this, the sooner you start, the sooner you'll be a pro at this. And these things won't be holding you back. Funky G says, I like your name, by the way. Funky G. I get your point. I was brainstorming about it and talking with my buddy who studies and work in the same company as me. Thank you for your insight and love your videos. Well, thank you very much, Funky G. My name is not nearly as exciting, and neither is my handle, so that's good. Medi says, someone who has an accent in his pronunciation, how he is perceived in the eyes of the recruiters does have less chance to get a job than others who are native speakers. All things being equal, yes. However, there are wild exceptions to this. And the obvious solution, like, look, we can talk about bias, we can talk about all that kind of stuff, but the obvious solution is to work on the accent, okay? Now, there's the whole bias thing, but beyond that, there are issues if you can technically speak a language, but your accent is so thick and so incomprehensible that it causes issues. It's a barrier to clear communication. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I'm bilingual. I speak English and I speak French. Je parle français, right? Ça, c'est le problème quand tu parles une autre langue, right? So, your accent is a thing. It's not just this thing that, anybody has a problem with my accent is biased. It's like, no, sometimes it can be a real legitimate barrier to communication. It can, first of all, on the basic level, it can, people could not understand what you're saying, right? Then on the sort of second level, they might not understand the color in what you're saying. Like the nonverbal communication that's provided by inflection and tone and all that kind of thing, right? So there's several levels of this, right? So if it's really an issue for you, I mean, we can talk about little quick fixes and workarounds, but the real solution is to just, like, if you're committed to speaking in this language, like you're moving to a country that speaks that language natively and you're operating, your entire career is going to be in that language, the better you can speak the language with the minimal accent, the further you will go. It's just that simple. Not because of bias, but because of it, your communication will be that much better. You won't be at a handicap, right? And I know what I'm talking about here. I've experienced that kind of stuff when speaking my second language, where you go to the extreme cases where you go to a place where everybody speaks your second language, you start talking to them in your second language, and they immediately respond in your first language, which I found almost insulting, and it's not that I can't speak, it's just that my accent is very regional, and it's very much the accent of someone who is not a native speaker. And you know what I mean? But I mean, I haven't had a need to really speak in that language for any amount of time for like 25 years or something like that. So it's not a big priority for me. Right? So anything you can do there in that department would really help. Now, beyond that, you can do several things that help. You can speak slower. You can try to communicate the tone or the nonverbal communication more explicitly with body language, with facial expressions, gestures, that kind of stuff, so that, people might not understand kind of the tone that you're using or the accent, but they can understand the meaning behind it through other means. There's little things like that you can do that will help, but it won't actually fix the problem. So that's my opinion. That's my personal opinion on it, based on my own experiences, which are probably not as far-ranging as your own. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that. So anyway, I never actually started the topic of this live stream. So while I'm waiting for the next questions to come in, I'm going to talk about the title of this, which is that this is why this is an extroverted world, or an extrovert's world. I'm looking at the exact syntax here. Okay, so I'm an introvert. I'm a technical introvert. That's why I care about this. I know there's a lot of introverts out there that are at a bit of a disadvantage, and they feel like they're at a disadvantage. I'm doing this because I've found that disadvantage is largely in your head. The actual skills you need are relatively quick and simple to learn. Let's start with some basic definitions. Introvert and extrovert. I'm going from the perspective of the definitions as used in the Myers-Briggs type indicator. That's what I'm referring to. So by those definitions, an introvert is someone who can do social interaction. You are perfectly capable of doing it. The only thing is you don't enjoy it. Okay, so you can be an introvert and you can have amazing people skills. You can give presentations, you can do public speaking, you could give toasts at weddings, all that kind of stuff. And you're really good at it. It's just that if you're an introvert, you don't do that for fun. At the end of the day, you come home and you go off by yourself to recharge the battery. You read a book, you watch TV, You don't surround yourself with 50 people you don't know and all have a party, right? That would be stressful to you, right? Social interaction is an energy draining experience for introverts. And the definition of extrovert is the opposite. It's a person who can do social interaction, but they find it an energy charging experience. So it's what they do for fun. These are the people that come home after a hard day at work. They surround themselves with like 50 people. They go out and a big get together in the neighborhood. They talk to everyone, and that's what they do for fun. That's what makes them feel comfortable, and it recharges the battery. Okay? So extroverts and introverts. So if you're an introvert, you're someone who, maybe you don't have social skills, or maybe you do, and maybe you have very good social skills. The point is, you don't enjoy doing it. So because you don't enjoy it, you tend not to do it as much. That's the thing. And therefore, you have less practice. Okay? Now, if you practice your skills, you can be as good as any extrovert. Easy. You might even be superior to a lot of extroverts. But it's not enjoyable to practice, right? So hopefully everybody understands the definitions here. That's the definitions. Those are the definitions that I'm going on. Okay. I wanted to go into a couple of principles here about why this is an extrovert's world. I think everyone has to understand that, usually when you get a job, you're working in a business. It's not always the case. Sometimes you work for a charity. Sometimes you work for the military. Sometimes you work for the government. There's exceptions, but generally speaking, most people are employed in the private sector by a for-profit employer, right? Now, whether you work in a small company or you work in a big company, doesn't matter, because the theory is the same. And that is that you have to make money, right? You have to be successful at something. And the general rule is that if you're successful in something, you will make more money. If you're less successful, you make less money, right? Now, how do you become successful in something? How do you become successful at business? It's by selling more things. How do you do that? It's by making something popular, right? How do you make something popular? Well, one of the things you need to make something popular is you have to be connected to a lot of people, right? It's hard for 1 million people to all know of your company and all want to buy your company's product if you've never connected with them in some way, right? So either you have put up a big sign that 1 million people can drive by and read, right? That's how you're connecting to them. You're communicating to them. And obviously it's something they like, so they understand that whatever they put on the sign, it's meant to get you to like them, right? How can you get someone to like you if you have no clue who they are? You don't care, you don't know what they care about, right? So you need to understand them. So there's a connection there, right? You need to be connected to customers at the very least. In the business world, you're connected to suppliers, partners, competitors, regulators, like there's all kinds of the government, there's all kinds of connections among these entities in the business environment, and you need them to be successful. The more connections you have and the better connections you have, the general rule is the more successful you will be, right? Now usually we're talking about getting a job, right? That's usually why people are here, why people are wanting to brush up on their people skills, right? Well, you want to get a job and work for an employer. Well, what is the employer doing? The employer is trying to make their thing popular, right? And that involves connections. So it follows that if you're the type of person that has a lot of connections and you can make connections easily and they're good connections, that you will be more valuable to an employer, right? It's hard to be an introvert and say, I'm not going to leave my house and I'm not going to meet anybody. I'm not going to communicate with anyone, but yet be a tremendous success. It's just hard because even if you were brilliant, if you were Albert Einstein, if you were Nikola Tesla and you discovered, like I think I said recently, you discovered cold fusion, the secret to cold fusion. You can make cold fusion with a table, 2 chairs, a TV tray, and a sweet trolley. You discovered a way of using those items to create cold fusion, which would solve the world's energy problems, right? So let's say you managed to do this in your house, but you never communicate with anyone. You can't communicate with anyone because you have social anxiety. You don't know how to communicate to anyone. You don't know who you would communicate with. And you hate the process. What would be the purpose? What would be the point of having solved cold fusion if you can't tell anyone about it, or publicize it or get it in front of the right people that can help exploit it? Right? Now, I know that's an absurd example, but hopefully it illustrates the point, right? If you're brilliant, you're brilliant. But if you can't exploit that, if no one can see that you're brilliant, if you can't convince anyone or persuade anyone that you're brilliant, what's the point in being brilliant? It all goes to waste. This is the problem, right? Now, there are ways to communicate with people without talking to them face to face, right? That's what we're doing now. And God knows the internet is a godsend for a lot of introverts, right? You can communicate with people and connect to people in the comfort of your own home. It's beautiful. That's one of the reasons I like YouTube so much. If I was a more extroverted person, I probably would not be doing this. I'd probably be out doing public speaking all the time. But I like doing this. I don't have to talk to anyone. I don't have to deal with all the administrative crap involved in doing that stuff. So that's a plus for me. Right? So connections are what this is all about. You need connections. It's great to have skills and it's great to have knowledge, but if you have no connections, you can't exploit the skills and the knowledge, right? So this is the importance of that stuff. A lot of reasons why introverts don't fulfill their potential is because they're not focusing on the connections. But the reason they're not focusing on them is because they trivialize the importance of connections. They don't see how important it really is. So therefore, they're not working on their abilities to communicate and to connect with people. So therefore, they don't really develop them, and therefore they're not very good. Right? Covered Girl says, I'm an introvert feeling crappy listening this far. I'm sorry about that, Covered Girl. Listen, if there's one takeaway, I want you to take away this. You're awesome. Introverts are highly, highly talented people. They're usually a hell of a lot smarter than a lot of extroverts. I can tell you that much. Simply because they have the ability to focus on something. And like, I've done this my whole career. I really like people that have, I mean, this is going to sound weird to articulate this, but someone that has like a weird idiosyncratic passion or obsession, you know, something that you don't see every day. Someone's like really, really, really into this. And you're like, oh, wow, you know, that's something you don't see every day, you know, but they know everything about it. And they are just passionate about it, you know, and it's like, wow, that's awesome. You know, like you would never get, imagine if nobody was into relational databases. Like, you want to talk technical stuff. Let's talk about that. You know, we're talking about computer systems. You know, some of the technology that we're using to communicate right now between me and you, it's over the internet using routers and, you know, telecommunications equipment, stuff like that. It's like, we would have never gotten of any of this if there hadn't been people that were just like absolutely passionate about relational databases, absolutely passionate about, you know, encryption algorithms. You know what I'm saying? Like these people live for this stuff. They eat, sleep, and breathe it. It's like they get up every morning and they think about like encryption, and then they work their whole day on encryption. They go to bed and then they, you know, right before they go to bed, they're thinking of like encryption, you know, and then they get up and then they do it all again every day. And they're not doing it because it's their job. They're doing it because they're into it, you know? I think that's absolutely amazing. And those people, my friend, those people are introverts. They're what makes the world function. You know? So don't get me wrong. I don't want you going away feeling like bad hearing this reality, okay? I'm setting this up to try and help you, to try and show you how, like, these are the people that can do this kind of thing, okay? These are much bigger challenges. Learning how to talk to somebody, that's a tiny challenge compared to their abilities, right? The reason why more introverts don't succeed in this area is because, number one, they don't even see the problem. They don't recognize that this is a thing that is holding them back. It's not even on their radar, right? So that's the first step, is to realize, like, okay, this is something that if you're an introvert, you probably should, you know, bone up on, do a little bit of work on it, like learn how to connect to people, learn how to talk to people in such a way that they go away loving you, you know? It's easy to tell someone your opinion. Trust me, it is. As a matter of fact, that's kind of what I do a lot on this live stream, don't I? It's easy to just bark out like, this is what I think blah, blah. That's not the same thing as communication skills. Communication skills in a professional sense is you tell someone something, but you make them want to listen to you. That's the difference. Right? Do you want to hear what your roommate or your friend, like, you know, you want to hear every single thing they think about politics or religion or some other thing that maybe you're not super interested in? Do you want to hear that? Like, have them go on a 2-hour sort of tirade about it? No, you'll probably be bored and annoyed. You know, it'll take effort to listen to that, right? You want to be able to communicate in a way that people want to hear from you, right? That's the goal here. Okay, Covered Girl says, I'm listening to learn. Thank you so much for caring to speak to this, which I know it's time to change. I agree. Yes. Yeah, this is a positive thing. Now let's see if I can actually get to some of the learning here. Okay, principle. The most connected person gets offered the most opportunities. This is something that is not that exotic. You might have heard this already. You might know this already, but that's the reality. The most connected person is the one that gets the job, right? That's usually how this goes. Okay. I mean, I've talked a lot on my channel about networking. I sometimes feel like a broken record trying to evangelize to people like, how this is not this horrible thing that you can't do. It's something actually very simple. It's something you can actually do most of over social networking. You can discover people, you can connect to them, and you can set up interviews or meetings or get-togethers with them using social networking. LinkedIn itself is an amazing tool for this. And when that happens, what the result is, you have somebody that you want to connect to. Say a person that is the gatekeeper for a job or something that you want. Or someone that you aspire to be like. Like maybe you'd like let's say you're going to university to learn to be an engineer. Maybe you'd love to sit down with the CEO of an engineering company, a big engineering company, or the head of the engineering department at some big company, like, I don't know, General Electric or something, like something like this. Maybe, that would be interesting for you, and just be able to ask them questions and listen to the tips that they give you and the concepts that they can teach you, right? Well, it's perfectly, everybody here who's listening to this, you are perfectly capable of discovering key people in your geographic region, like say in your city or something, that can directly help you in your career. Let's say you are getting a degree in engineering. Well, this person runs an engineering company. So yes, they can help you on multiple levels. Number one, they could give you a job, right? Number two, they could give you career advice that would help you succeed, right? Number three, they can open doors for you. They can connect you with someone who is looking for a job right now. Or maybe it's not a job. Maybe it's more of a really high level internship. You get to work with this engineering celebrity, or something like that. You get to sit in the room at the high level design team for, I don't know, General Motors or something when they're designing this next year's cars or whatever, whatever it is, right? They can help you on multiple levels. So you'll be able to discover those people. You will then be able to connect with them. You will then be able to reach out to them. And if you know what to say and how to say it, you will be able to send them a message where they respond and say, sure, let's get together. Let's grab a coffee sometime. Let's grab a coffee next week at 3 at this place, maybe this Starbucks. Come on down. Sure, I'll give you an hour of my time, something like that, right? And it's not like a job interview. It's not like a big, it's like they've invited you down, right? It feels like a referral. They want to talk to you. I've talked about this on my channel. Now, listen, if you just hearing this much, if you want to know what that looks like, okay? I'm not trying to get you to leave this stream, but there's a link to a video I did in the description box of this live stream. It's called How Successful People Get Jobs. And I don't just talk about that process, I show it to you. What that looks like on Google Maps, on LinkedIn, here's where you go, here's what search you do, that kind of thing. And that can show you how to do that. Or at least it can show you what's possible. Now that's in the context of getting a job. I'm talking now about a more wider kind of concept here. Okay, so check that out if you want to see more on that. But the most connected person gets the job opportunities. Usually, one of the things they look for when they're hiring someone is not necessarily the best candidate. Usually, they're not looking for the best candidate. They're not looking for the most experienced candidate. They're looking for someone who meets the technical qualifications for the job, so they can do the job, but they're usually the least risky candidate. Now, what makes a candidate risky? Well, the number one thing is that they, apart from them, if they've falsified their resume and they can't actually do the job, that's an element of risk. But usually it's because they actually end up not wanting to do the job. You give them an offer of employment. They start work. Within 2 months, they've decided, I don't like it here. I hate this place. I have no interest in staying here. I mean, I do need a paycheck, but I don't want to work here. This place sucks. And they immediately start looking for other opportunities, right? And then they start phoning it in at that job, right? It has nothing to do with their abilities. It has nothing to do with, their knowledge or their education or their experience. It's to do with, their like, what do you call it? Like their personality, their ambition. Maybe they don't like that environment. They feel everybody is nasty and rude and off-putting. Other people, maybe they have a thicker skin. They don't mind that stuff as much. But maybe you get a more sensitive person. They hate it there. There's nothing to do with the job. It's the culture, right? So how do you find people? How do you detect? Let's say you're a hiring manager. How would you detect in a string of candidates that you interview which ones are genuinely passionate about doing the job and who would fit in with your culture, and which ones either are not genuinely passionate about doing that kind of work, or they just don't fit with the culture of how things are done at your organization? They would get offended. They would feel isolated. They feel like they're not valued. It might all be in their head, and then they leave. How would you detect that? Well, I'll tell you one thing. Let's pretend someone like Covered Girl has contacted them. Covered Girl is not looking for a job, and you haven't posted a job. But let's say you're like you're a hiring manager. You're the head of a department, and occasionally you hire people for your team, right? Covered Girl says, listen, I would like to one day be in your shoes. I'm young, you're much more experienced, but I'm hoping to learn from you. Could I ask, would I be able to sit down with you and ask you a few questions about the industry in general and maybe the kind of work you do and, the approach, and if you have any pointers for young people, would I be able to do that? And maybe somebody says, sure, yeah, that sounds kind of flattering. I can give you like half an hour. So you go down, you meet with them, and you say like, wow, I think what you do is fascinating. How did you get into this industry? Where is this industry going? When you do this, how do you make that decision? Do you think in terms of this? Is this the priority? And that person gets to talk all about what they know, what they think. And here's a person that's like genuinely interested in listening to what they think, which is very flattering. And then the person says like, wow, that was amazing. You really taught me so much. That's incredible. Thank you. Right? Now, you're also looking for that dedicated employee who's going to work out, right? So imagine if that person also happened to have the skills that you could use, right, as a hiring manager to hire for your team. It's like instead of talking to strangers that applied for a job through a publicly posted listing, you think like, wait a minute, that person, what was her name? Covered Girl. She, we had this great informational interview. She signaled through her questions that she really understood, like she was on the ball when it comes to this stuff. And I know that she has a degree in, engineering or whatever we require. If she applied here for this job, I'd hire her in a second, because not only on paper do I see that she's qualified to do the job, but she's shown me how professional she is. She's shown me her initiative, her ability to go out and just make things happen by reaching out to me and getting this interview. And, she's shown me her people skills and, how likable she was and how enjoyable that experience was for me to talk about what I think about things. It was very flattering. If I got to hire somebody, I'd rather hire her. She seems to have all the soft skills we're looking for. She seems to have genuine interest in this company, in this type of work. She seems to work well with me. We seem to get along and interact well together and click. You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going with this, right? That's why networking is a gateway to get all kinds of great jobs, right? So this is, is this like a skill that's beyond most people? Absolutely not. All of the setup for this was all done online. It was all done over LinkedIn and Google Maps and stuff like this. And you sent a message via LinkedIn to this person. And the only thing you had to do was show up at a pre-designated date, time, place, right? And ask some intelligent questions. And the story I always tell, the extreme example of this is, like, I've done this many, many times, and the only people I really connected with were CEOs. And there was one case, I've told it before, you guys know, where it was the CEO of the international airport in my hometown, and I got an informational interview. I said, can I get half an hour of your time? This person said yes. And so I showed up. Their office was in the control tower. There's massive office. And, I walked in, I was shown in by the EA, the executive assistant, to the CEO's office. I can't remember what their name was. It was like Doug or, whatever. So I was like, hey, Doug, so how's business? Was the first thing out of my mouth. And they talked 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 beyond the amount of time that we had allotted for this meeting with me, because they were on a roll. It's like, finally, someone asks them about what they think of, like, how this industry works and how an airport should be run. And they just went on. And then after like 45 minutes or something, they said, like, they got self-conscious and said, so what about you? What brings you here? But they were so into it, right, that they loved me. And I mean, I hardly did anything, and even if, like, it just ends there, okay, like these type of encounters, you can usually leave the meeting or the get together by saying, like, if you have a card, it really helps. You give them your card, and then that's the cue for them to give you their card, and you say, okay, great. Listen, if I ever have any questions about this stuff, is it okay? Like, if I were to give you a call, would that be fine? And 99% of the time they'll say, sure. And there you go. Next time that company posts a job, you can call up the CEO and says, hey, I noticed that someone in your company posted a job here. Does it make sense for me to apply for that? Something like that, right? And then, like, bang, you're a shoo-in. I'll tell you something, on an unrelated note. When the CEO gives the head of HR your resume and says, look into this person, that carries a lot of weight. Let me tell you that. Okay? Now, remember, and when I say CEO, we're not talking about, like, celebrity CEOs. We're talking about, like me, people like me, like you run a company. In your hometown, if you live in a town of like 1 million people, like a city of 1 million people, there's probably like 50,000 companies easily in that city. And a lot of those will have either all of those will have either an owner or a CEO, somebody who's running it on behalf of the owner, right? So we're not talking about these, like, people up in an ivory tower here. We're talking about people like you and me. It's just that they happen to, be running a smaller, mid-sized company, right? Anyway. Okay, getting back to the chat here. Pearl says, you're right, like a professional course. Does it only cover written communication or communication in general? And would you later in the future do a course on oral communication? Well, I'm not an authority on oral communication. I mean, like, you can tell by how I talk that public speaking is not, like, my core competency. It's a necessary evil. You know what I mean? I'm not a good speaker. I use a lot of crutch words and ums and ahs and all this kind of thing. It's also kind of monotone when I talk. But to answer your question, the course is primarily about written communication, but beyond the written communication, it's also about, like, what to say in what situation. Like, what is the correct response? What is the thing to do, right? So it focuses on written communication because that's something that, like, it's the cornerstone of what you do, of your communication. Apart from, like, knowing how to just have a conversation with somebody, that's the bulk of what you do as an executive. Everything that's important has to be put in writing. You know what I mean? But I don't focus on, like, public speaking skills or anything like that, or presentation skills. really in that course. I mean, I think there might be a little bit in there, but it's mainly a writing course, but it's mostly about what to say rather than how to write. Okay, there is a component on how to write, but it's mainly about what to say. That's where the value is, like knowing what to say. I did a video on, like all my courses have an accompanying video where I explain the course. So I explain what's in it, how it works, what you get, that kind of thing. So there should be a link to that, once again, in the description box of this live stream. So there'll be a link to the actual course, and there'll be a link to the informational video about the course. So it's as transparent as possible. So check that out, Pearl, if you're interested in that. Would I do something in the future about oral communication? I hadn't planned on it. I mean, it's not beyond the possibility, but of the stuff that I could add value to people with, that would not be the first thing that leaps to mind for me. But it's interesting. CoverGirl says, I'm empowered to go beyond introversion much more now. Well, good. You should be. Like, look, you could still be an introvert. It doesn't mean that you can't do social interaction. You could probably do it really well. It's just that you don't like it. So the secret is to do it on your own terms, right? So what I found for me, it really helps with doing the unpleasant stuff virtually, like getting people to want to talk to you or agree to talk to you. All that, you do that virtually. And then once people want to talk to you and they respond and they've had every opportunity to opt out and they haven't, then you show up and then you're talking to people that know who you are, they know why you're there, and they agreed to talk to you, they want to talk to you. They didn't have to agree. There's no pressure. They did it because they wanted to, right? So you can create that situation, and then it's a little bit easier because there's nothing more unnerving for a lot of people that are almost like a cold call, like, in sales where you are interacting with someone that the odds are they don't want to interact with you, right? So if you're not enjoying this process to begin with, that's going to be the holy grail of living hell, is like talking to people under those conditions. So you try and manipulate it, or you do manipulate it so that you don't have to be in that situation, right? And then it's much easier. I mean, can you hold a conversation with somebody who wants to talk to you? If the answer is yes, then you can do this. The rest is just learning what to say to what person over what channel. And you can learn that with templates and with principles and all that kind of stuff. Like, this is the thing. There's many ways of doing networking. I mean, you could go to events and you could talk to people, face to face, and just, there's a lot of ways of doing this. And a lot of people do it many different ways. But if you're an introvert, maybe some of those don't really appeal to you. It's too much to ask. So you can find a way that does work for you. So that's what I've always been an advocate for. That's what I myself have done. And, I found that when I worked in companies, in my capacity of doing my job, I didn't have a fear of interacting with people. You got to call up some supplier and ask them where they are with a work order or whatever. I mean, that's not a problem. It's like, hey, it's Bill from, whatever company. Hey, okay, I got a question. Work order number, whatever, where are we with that? Blah, blah, blah. That's not been an issue with me. I don't know if you're at the point where that would be an issue for you, because it's part of your job. You've done it many times before. You don't have imposter syndrome because it's part of your job. You're representing your company. Your job is to do this. And the person on the other end of the phone knows that it's your job to do this. So they don't wonder, like, who are you to talk to me? That doesn't enter into it. So that's what I found. But it's when you go outside to, like, now it's not my job to talk to you. I'm trying to talk to you on my own volition, and I'm hoping to pique your interest in talking to me. That's where the anxiety still is a little bit. with me, even after all these years. You know, and that's what this is a solution for, what I've been talking about for the last half an hour. Anyway, if you want to learn this stuff, if you're interested in going deeper with me, check out that course. A lot of introverts will like that course. It's geared towards introverts. It talks about the traditional ways of getting a job, you know, job interview questions, all that stuff, but it also goes into some networking elements. And what I've been describing in the last half an hour is kind of what that course covers too. And like I said, if you want to see what this looks like, I have a video on my channel. There's a link to it in the description box below this live stream. And it's called How Successful People Get Jobs. You can check out that video. It's not just me talking about it, it's me showing you what it looks like when you actually do it. Okay, so check that out. And that may help you take some of these steps. You know, there are more ways to get a job than simply talking to a recruiter or going through a recruiter. You know, the recruiters are kind of like, in some ways, they're the gatekeepers. The hiring manager is the person that actually has the power to hire. And the recruiter, like, no offense to recruiters, but recruiters are basically the grunt that helps the hiring manager fill a job. They do the grunt work. They post the job. They write the, you know, they filter the resumes. They, you know, publish the job posting far and wide. They do the initial screening of candidates. They do the background checks. They call the references, like all that kind of grunt work. The actual decision-making part of it is done by the hiring manager, because the hiring manager is the one hiring. They initiated the job vacancy in the first place, and they have to work with whoever you hire on a daily basis. Once the person is hired and onboarded, the recruiter is out of it. You never see them again. But the hiring manager has to work with them every day, right? They're their boss. So the hiring manager is the person who is the real decision maker. And you can connect directly to hiring managers without having to go through a recruiter. It's very simple. LinkedIn is your gateway to that. You could see these, here's the person, here's their job. They run this department in this company. You can see them, you can see their contact information, and you can click a button and send them a message, you know? Now, knowing what the right message is, that's where there's a little bit of skill, right? But then if you get into the same room with them and they want to talk to you, then a lot of interesting opportunities can present themselves. Holy crap, Pearl just said something amazing. Pearl says, I think you are a great speaker, to be honest. Well, thank you, Pearl. That's very nice of you. I don't know if you noticed, but all the videos I do that are like really popular, they're all scripted videos. I have to script them out so that they're compact, to the point, and they're delivered well. When I'm just off the cuff, I'm doing this. It's filled with hesitation, me figuring out what the hell I'm going to say next, right? That's because I'm an introvert. It doesn't come naturally. But you can, you can develop these skills. I could develop them further if I wanted to. But everyone can develop them, certainly to, the point where you're comfortable speaking, and you can, like having a conversation with somebody is very simple. All you do is you ask them a series of questions about them, about something that they want to talk about. What are you most interested in? You're most interested in you. So you ask them about you. If someone asks you about you, and you feel that they genuinely are interested in what you have to say, you'll talk for hours. Your perspective on life, the universe, and everything. It's really not that hard. Okay, before I get distracted yet again, I just want to get to the end of this. I have one more principle, I think. So the last principle I said was the most connected person gets offered the job, or gets offered the most opportunities. So the more connected you are, the more opportunities you get. That's the value of this. That's why everyone should be at least somewhat interested in being more connected and learning how networking works. Somebody wrote a book, some business guru wrote a book called Never Eat Alone, I don't know who wrote that. It's one of those classic business books, like Dale Carnegie, with How to Win Friends and Influence People. Read that book, by the way. If you're just sort of starting out, you want to develop these skills, read that book. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Let's see if I can very briefly show you what that looks like. I'm just going to open up a browser here. Here we go. Google, How to Win Friends. I have a microphone right in my way here. I'm just going to move this. And influence people. Here we go. Okay. Let's see if I can do this. Okay. So here, this has been reprinted over and over and over again. It's the same book, right? They've just been published many, many times. Can I do an image search? Yeah, so this is what it looks like, for like $10 or whatever, Go out, if you haven't read this and you are interested in this, here's a person that, actually can phrase and articulate all this stuff a lot better than I can. Go read this book, okay? How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Now, while we're here, I just want to look up that thing I was talking about a second ago. I think it's called Never Eat Alone. Book. Yeah, let's see. Okay. Now, I haven't read this, so I don't know if it's any good, but I know it's famous. A lot of people have talked about it. Okay, so by Keith Ferrazzi, if that's how you say that name. Knowing my luck, it'll be pronounced Ferrazzi, and they'll get mortally insulted if you say their name wrong. But yeah, you could try that too. This one is a little bit pricier, but get the Dale Carnegie one. If you haven't read that one, that's really good. Everyone should read that. It should be required reading, and it should be mandatory in high schools as far as I'm concerned. Okay, now I was going to explain my last principle, and the last principle is this. Have you ever tried to reach out to someone because you think they can help you? Right? Have you ever done that? I would imagine most people have at some point in their lives to some degree. And it may not have gone great. And if you wonder why it didn't go great, it didn't result in any amazing sort of thing happening, probably the reason why that happened is because you were only thinking of how to benefit yourself. Right? After all, the reason why you're reaching out is for you to get some benefit from them, right? From your interaction with them. It's all about you, right? And when you do this, you notice that a lot of people are not really that interested, right? There's no real incentive for them, right, to take you up on this, to respond to you, especially if you don't know them, right? Well, the other principle is that people are much, much more likely to respond to you if you are offering them some benefit, like if you can help them in some way. Now, the example I said earlier about an informational interview, why would somebody respond to your request for an informational interview? You reach out to someone, you say, hey, you're up here, I'm down here. I'd very much like to talk to you about, what you do or something, right? Well, what would be the incentive for people to agree to that? Like, okay, obviously you want it because it benefits you. Maybe they could offer you a job. Maybe they could connect you with someone who can offer you a job. Maybe they could give you some advice, some pointers. Maybe they could give you an inside view. You could ask for a tour of their business or their operation or whatever. Maybe they have some small celebrity power or equivalent, in your mind. It would be a thrill meeting them. A feather in your cap to say, oh, I spoke to this person yesterday. I'm clearly important. What would be the incentive for them to agree to that? They don't know you. They're asking to talk to you. Why would they agree? Well, there's two basic reasons that are, in my opinion, obvious. The first one is flattery. If you contact someone and say, I would love to get your expert opinion on this, because I really respect your point of view on this. I really want to know what you think. Now tell me something. How often do you get that? How often does someone come to you and say, who are we talking about here? Botifar. Botifar is in the chat. So Botifar, how often does someone come to you and say, Mr. Botifar or Ms. Botifar? I think you do a fantastic job. I'd love to know what you know. Would I be able to ask you some questions and learn from you? Would that be okay? How often do you get that? And if you did get that and it was genuine, you felt that it was genuine. It wasn't someone trying to, pull something over on you, but it was genuine. How would you feel about that? You'd probably feel flattered. The ego is very real. And because you don't get a lot of that, you might be like, that makes me feel good. It makes me feel important. Somebody values what I think about what I do and my thoughts on what's going on and how things should be, So what they're getting is it's very flattering. It's a very flattering kind of thing, okay? The other reason why, say, executives will do this is because, unbeknownst to a lot of people, their job is to take unsolicited queries from the public. People at the bottom, they don't know anything. Like workers, they don't interface with the public unless it's directly part of their job, like in customer service or something. People in the middle managers, they don't usually interface with the public, and besides, they're far too busy. Right? That's not really part of their job. Their job is to run something. Right? Their job is not to talk to the public, like unless they're working like marketing or something where you specifically have to do that. Public relations. They have their area of responsibility, and it doesn't involve taking random queries from the public. But executives, that's actually part of their job. Part of their job is representing the organization. That's what they do. And kind of unintuitively to a lot of people, they actually have the time to do this. They have unstructured time where they can devote it to, random unscheduled events like meetings with people that contact them. Like, for example, you get someone that you don't know contacts the company and saying like, look, I'd very much like to sit down with you or someone, get your opinion on something. A lot of times that could be someone from the government. It could be a regulator. It could be the press, someone wanting to do an article about you. It could be a potential supplier. They're coming to town. They're looking to partner with one of the businesses in this area. It could be yours, right? But they're wanting to just feel you out first, right? They talk to one company, that company bites their head off and says like, what, you want to talk to me? Why? Who are you? How do you get this number? No, we don't talk to people we don't know. Goodbye. And then you call up another company and they say, sure, yeah, come on down. No problem. And then they invite you in. Hey, you're here. Come here. Have a seat. Sure. What would you like to know? Right? Who do you think is going to get the contract? Right? So executives, like that's actually part of their job. Okay. So they don't know you, but you contact them saying, very much like to speak with you. And, that's another mechanism of why they would say yes, because I don't know where this goes. And remember, they're usually people that are tuned into networking and having connections with people and stuff. So this is what you do, right? So anyway, so that's the reason why people would agree to this. If you're offering them something, there's some benefit to them. And at the end of the day, the most basic benefit that you can provide is it's a flattering experience. And you'd be surprised how often that works. And I mean, it's not smoke and mirrors. It's not disingenuous because you're genuinely interested in learning what they have to say. There's no obfuscation there. Anyway, that's all my notes for this topic, for what that's worth. If anyone has any questions or comments, get in the chat and make them now, because I'm out of material. I see there's 29 of you guys here. We've been here for about an hour and a half, so that's not too bad. But if anyone has any last questions or comments or anything like that, let me know. I think I responded to everyone's questions here. Bonifar says, what's your name? Well, I'm Bill. My name is Bill. Cover Girl says something nice. Thank you, Cover Girl. Covered Girl. Awesome. Okay, well, I do live streams Mondays and Wednesdays. There's a couple of different streams I do. I do a business stream for like entrepreneur type people or wanting to do side hustles or just wanting to start businesses outright or just want to talk about business. I do a live stream called Side Hustle Ideas. Traditionally, it's every Monday. I do a collaborative live stream also on Mondays where I talk to other YouTubers in the space. So I've done a few of those, and I'm hoping to build that and get a whole menagerie of YouTubers that talk about job search all together at the same time so that you can talk about the different advice that people give out for different things. I do a weekly live stream on job search, which is called How to Get Hired. That's on Wednesdays. I did that today earlier. And then I do another one, this one, Honest HR Nitrous, which has proven to be surprisingly popular, where it's a no holds barred on just talking about life, the universe, and everything as it relates to careers and employment and success in life. And I originally started because I wanted to talk about, some of the realities that people don't normally talk about. Like recruiters talk about how to get a job through a recruiter, but not a lot of people are talking about networking, or they're talking about, the fact that you can get a job by going around recruiters to hiring managers and executives and things. So, and there's a lot of BS out there. There's a lot of bad advice. At the end of the day, don't listen to me. Don't listen to any other person. Corroborate whatever it is, especially if it's important. Get your advice from multiple sources. And there's no substitute for having seen things with your own eyes and having done things with your own hands, right? Go out and try things. There's a lot of people that will sit in their basement and they'll tell you something is impossible. They've never attempted to do it themselves, and they'll argue with people that have done it over whether it's possible or not. You know what I mean? So don't take anyone's word for it. If I've said anything that sounds interesting to you, learn more about it, learn all you can, and go out and apply it and try it and see how it goes, And just the last thing I'll say, obviously, as you can see on your screen, I can actually get rid of that stuff. How's that? Nice, clean look. But I have 3 courses on various things. If you want to get hired, get this. If you want to learn business, get that. If you want to get promoted and go up into upper management, get this. Links in the description to these. And I will be back next Monday with more of my streams. Bonifar says, thank you, Bill. I learned a lot from you. All your live on YouTube. Yes, my live streams are on YouTube. Yeah. Covered Girl, yours. Thank you for ending with me. Fully insightful. Would like to encourage to start a YouTube page. Would like courage to start a YouTube page. Yeah, listen, that's interesting. We're talking about public speaking. And these days, especially where some job interviews are taking place over like video links, right? Like a Zoom call or whatever. That's like a hop, skip, and a jump away from like filming yourself, right? Like doing videos. So yeah, maybe that, like those processes are very closely related. Filming yourself, doing videos, and then doing video job interviews. Very similar thing. If you develop skills in one area, I'm sure they will carry over to the other. Doing public speaking, I would say part of it is being comfortable seeing yourself on video, hearing the sound of your own voice, right? And it gives you an excuse to experiment with the technology, right? Like I'm doing. You can come up close for a more personal kind of thing here, right? So sure, learn all you can about it, like I said, and take the plunge. And time is going to pass whether you are working on yourself or not. So pick a challenge that is doable. Like you're not shooting for the moon here, but something that's doable, baby steps, and give it some time and stick with it, and you can accomplish great things. So thank you to everybody. You guys are awesome. I will see you soon. I wish you nothing but the best, especially all you introverts out there. Take care.